most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jayson Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prizepicks.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. This is Sherrod Blakely, joined by Vincent Goodwill of Yahoo Sports. What's up, Vince?
What's going on, big bro? How you doing?
I'm good. I didn't keep your full government name out of the conversation today, so I'm,
Thank goodness.
trying to be better about that. How you been there? How you enjoying the finals?
You know what it is. When you get to game 3, game 4 of the finals, you're tired as hell. You don't care who wins. You just want this to be over. That's all. All these days in between games, you traveling. You in Oklahoma City and Indianapolis. This is like the sundown town in NBA finals.
Facts. Before we get too far into this and get started, I want to remind folks that they're listening to the Big Three NBA podcast, which is part of the CLNS Media Network, which is where you'll find the Big Three NBA podcasts, past and present, many of which include our good friend Vincent Goodwill. In addition, there's a ton of other Celtics content there, so definitely check that out, regardless of the time of season or the reason. CLNS Media Network has you covered for all NBA and Celtics-related content. Check it out. And speaking of checking out, check out them damn Indiana Pacers. Up 2-1. Mathurin came off the bench with 27 points, played like 22 minutes. Halliburton had a near triple-double with 22, 11, and 9. My man Spicy P did his thing with 21. SGA had 24, which is below what he normally scores, and he did it on just 9 for 20 shooting. Jay Will had 26. Chet had a double-double, 20 and 10. Now, this is the thing that I'm at that point, Vincent, where I just thought I would never find myself asking this question and being serious about it. Can the Pacers win this series?
I think we have to stop doubting the possibility that they can win the series. I think we've long sat in this space of OKC's going to sweep them. OKC's going to win in 5. Maybe OKC wins in 6, right? And that requires them to win 3 straight games. And I don't think anybody would be surprised if that happens. But when you take a 2-1 series lead and you're not hurt and they're not hurt, these are 2 full-grown teams that are playing at full strength relatively at this point, and you see the Pacers the way that they played yesterday. It was almost like they stopped being so reverential. They stopped being so respectful. They were very nice in the first 2 games of the NBA Finals. They didn't want to foul Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These are 2 great organizations with a lot of respect for one another. Screw all that. You're in the NBA Finals. You got to go and get it. And for once, it looked like the Pacers actually believed that they belonged on the same floor as Oklahoma City. And I think, even if it was something as simple as Thomas Bryant yanking down Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on one of those fouls, whereas, no, you're not going to get a cheapie and one. No, you're going to get yanked down, and that's going to wear you down over the course of a game. Like, shockingly to me, Sherrod, OKC was the team that was tugging at their shorts late in the game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was tugging at his shorts late in the game. The Pacers were playing at full strength. So much of that is adrenaline. You're on your home floor for the first time in this series and everything else. But the Pacers just play at a different sort of pace, and you have to be prepared for that. And usually playoff basketball slows down. It's a lot more physical. The Pacers are breaking every traditional rule that we think playoff basketball is supposed to be. And because of that, now you're looking around, you're like, no, maybe they can win this series if they continue playing like this.
Yeah, I thought the Pacers made the decision that, instead of us treating this as a basketball game, we're going to treat this bad boy like it's Hunger Games. That's how we need to approach this team. We can't just be messing around and giving them all this respect. Yeah, they won 68 games, and they on pace to win, 8. They've already won 80-plus games when you throw in playoffs and regular season. But damn it, we here. We might as well show out while we're here. And it looks like the Pacers have embraced the reality that this is a chance for them to do what no one really outside of that locker room and that organization thinks can be done, and that's win a chip. But in order to do that, things have to go a certain way for both teams. And when you look at Game 3, which is right now, that's really the game we're talking about, the game that has shifted the momentum clearly in one team's favor. What was that game more about? Was it good Indiana play, or bad OKC? Because I know it was a little bit of both, but which do you think was the stronger current for what we saw in Game 3?
I understand the question because when you look at TJ McConnell stealing inbound passes or doing grand theft Alvarado or whatever it is, that points to a lack of concentration from Oklahoma City. That points to maybe a naivete from Oklahoma City. Maybe they thought that, hey, we put this team down in game 2. We're going to survive a couple of runs and put them away in game 3. And maybe they didn't come with the right approach for 48 minutes. But I'm going to give the Pacers a lot of credit, and here's why. They get out to a slow start. They were down 15-6. Pascal Siakam was the only guy who was able to get buckets for them. They picked themselves off the mat then. And then in the start of the third quarter, if you weren't paying attention, if you went to do something, like if you wanted to take a quick nap at halftime and you came back within 90 seconds, they lost the lead again. And at the end of the third quarter, they lost the lead again. And then they just kept clawing and fighting back. They're almost like nuclear roaches. You know what I mean? Like you literally cannot put this team down. And the fact that, to me, Sherrod, we talk all the time in playoff basketball about getting good shots or great shots. Actually, you have to get quality shots, especially against good defense. You got to shift the ball. You got to move it across and everything else. Man, you got to get a good shot against Oklahoma City. If you are waiting around for the best shot or the perfect shot, you're going to chuck yourself into a shot clock violation or dribble yourself into a turnover. So I feel like they did a really good job of being decisive when they were playing. They weren't waiting around. It was like, hey, if you give us space, we're going to take this shot right now, whatever time the shot clock is. And they determined the pace of the game. They determined the terms of how this game was going to be played, and it was going to be played fast. So I believe that Indiana took the game as opposed to Oklahoma City sort of choking it away.
Now, if that's the case, and let's say they are able to do that and continue on this trend that they're on now, which is winning games that nobody other than the folks that within the organization think they can win, what do you think the impact of that would be on the league? Because and we've been around the game long enough, it's a copycat league. If one team is doing something and they're winning at a really high level, everyone is going to try to do that. We saw that this past season when they look at the Celtics and said, damn, they shoot a lot of threes. We ain't got shooters as good as they got, but we will shoot a lot of threes anyway. What do you think the Pacers' impact could be potentially on the league from a copycat standpoint if they're able to finish this thing off and win a couple more games and win that chip?
It's one of those weird things, Sherrod, where I don't know if this is going to be the formula, right? Because teams are still going to go star hunting as much as they can go star hunting. Like you have the Pacers who have one star, and then you have an experienced player in Pascal Siakam. You have a bunch of good players. I still think this is a star league. Unfortunately, for a lot of teams, this is a second apron league. Where I think Indiana is going to help the NBA as far as is with the tanking. They never really fell all the way to the bottom as far as trying to build. Like Tyrese Halliburton was not a top 3 draft pick. He's not even their draft pick. Like they traded for him. They traded Domantas Sabonis for him. Like
an all-star.
Miles,
right?
Yeah, an all-star. But it was, if you look at a guy like Miles Turner, and I think I'll land the plane for you. When he first started, he was with the Paul George, Monte Ellis teams. And then he was with the Victor Oladipo, Domas Sabonis teams. And now he's with this team. They kept drafting in the middle. They kept trying to compete. They kept, retrofitting the roster to what the league was trying to do. They had some rough and some lean years in between, but they stayed with it. And even if you don't think that this is necessarily sustainable for them, sometimes all you need is one run where you get through and you're like, you know what, this is going to be enough for me to continue the course. And I think that's where it is. I don't think you want to stop the Lakers from being the Lakers, the Knicks from being the Knicks, some of the star teams from being who they are. But I think for some of those mid-market teams that says, you know what, man, all we need is one good player, one guy to build this whole thing around, whether he's a franchise player, superstar, all-star, whatever it is, and then we just acquire a bunch of good players as opposed to tanking. I think it may be their long-term effect.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the flip side to that, if let's say they are able to get it done and get that chip, people are going to look at OKC and be like, ooh, uh-oh. And if they lose, there's a couple of there's several paths they could take, but to me, the most obvious ones are either run it back with your core group or make some radical changes. What do you if for some reason OKC comes up short and doesn't win a championship? How do you anticipate they would respond to that in terms of roster construction?
I think it's important to remember that, yes, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is 26 years old, but Chet is 22, 23. Jalen Williams is 22, 23. Like, even though I was talking to some Oklahoma City people during the Western Conference semifinals, and they were discussing the possibility of them losing to Denver. Now, granted, that seems like eons ago, right?
Right.
And it seems unreasonable to expect that they would have lost to the Denver Nuggets in the second round, considering they blew them out in Game 7. But the long-term approach that this franchise has, I don't think you're looking at this and saying, okay, we've gotten as far as we've gotten since 2012. We maybe squandered a playoff series or a final series if they happen to lose, which I'm not sure they're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
That means we're going to just make radical changes, or that means, you know what, Chet Holmgren, you're going to have another summer of growth. Jalen Williams, you're going to have another summer of growth. Mark Daigneault is head coach. You're going to have a summer of growth as opposed to maybe Rick Carlisle outthinking you at this point. So I don't think they have a reason to blow it up because the expectations are not such that this would be seen as such a massive failure. This would probably be seen as a step in the process. And it's not like the Oklahoma City market is going to go full on blame and say, hey, Sam Presti has to go, somebody has to go. They're going to be disappointed, but I think they're going to be very forward thinking as far as looking toward the future. They still got a lot of draft picks. You still got a lot of young players. I think this may be just a natural part of the process. But then again, I'm not sure they're going to lose.
Right. And I think a lot of people are in that same camp. But definitely there's no question about it. They are in a series now, regardless of whether they're able to pull it out or not. Before we go any further, just want to remind folks that they're listening to this show and subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching it on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to the Celtics All Access YouTube channel where you can find our show and a lot of other great Celtics content. And please make sure to turn on your notifications so you can get the notice the instant a new video like this one will drop. Shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk a little bit Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown, who since the season ended, most folks don't notice, but he's been kind of on a like, I don't want to go anywhere tour. The Jaylen Brown pop-ups have been like popping every weekend, signing autographs, kissing babies, hugging, just clearly wants to be in Boston. He's having off-season surgery they recently announced, and all indications are that he'll be good to go once training camp starts and all that. But Vinny, as someone who has seen a lot of basketball, you've seen major players have various injuries and things like that. Where do you see the Celtics when you look at the fact that they may be beginning the season with not their best player, but their top two players either unavailable or just coming off the mend from surgery? How do you think this Celtics team going into the season is going to fare as they're constructed?
Well, you have to first tell me who's going to be on the roster as they start the season. We got to get through the summer first and see how Brad Stevens sort of retrofits this roster for this sort of one gap year as you wait on Jayson Tatum to come back from that Achilles injury and you hope that he's back to 100%. You know, that Achilles injury is no longer like the killer that it used to be. I feel like guys can come back and be, reasonable versions, 95% of themselves athletically. And Jayson Tatum wasn't like a super athlete to begin with. You know what I mean? So it's not like I don't think this is going to be a thing that like severely hinders him. It's going to change him a little bit. I don't think it's going to hinder him. But you have to ask the question, is Drew Holiday still on this roster?
Mm-hmm.
Is Derek White still on this roster? Is Kristaps Porzingis still on this roster? Like, you can go from being a team that we all thought were going to be hosting these NBA finals for the next couple of years to being a team that's in transition. And that is probably a function of the collective bargaining agreement. That is a function of, remember, new ownership coming in. And I'm sure they don't want to have a huge luxury tax bill, a restrictive tax bill that says, you can't aggregate contracts. You may have to give up draft picks and everything else. Like, you don't want that. So I'm thinking they're going to make personnel moves that get them to be under that second apron, maybe not under the first apron, but under the second apron so that they can at least be competitive. And that means you're still holding on to Jaylen Brown, and maybe you do something with Drew Holiday. It's Al Horford coming back. Like, that's the thing that's more fascinating to me. I don't think they're going to drop down to like playing territory. It's the Eastern Conference, mind you, right? Like, I don't think you have to try very hard if you already got good bones of a team to be in the top 6. I think that's where they want to be. Let's just get in the top 6. Let's see what Jayson Tatum is come March and April. And if that means we get him back, we get him back. If we don't, we don't. We're not going to rush him out there. At least that's what I think their approach is going to be. But I think the number one thing is going to be we got to get under that tax bill, and we got to get a little bit younger, because they were just old enough last year, Sherrod. They were just old enough last year. Next year, you hold on to Al Horford at 37. Drew Holiday's going to be 36, somewhere around there. Like, you get one too many old players, you become an old team.
Right. And that's really one of the questions that this team has going forward is how do you remain competitive, get younger, and address the finances? Because to your point, Vinny, I mean, no one has a true sense of what the heck is going to happen with the finances when you talk about new ownership. If ownership wasn't involved at all in this conversation, you pretty much feel that maybe they'll run it back with what they got. But man, with new owners, particularly coming from the private equity space, they're trying to get paid. They're trying to get paid like now. They're not trying to wait. Like, their focus is much more on winning the financial ledger than the NBA finals. And so that's certainly going to be one of the many factors that comes into play as we kind of roll through this summer and things like that. Before we go any further, I want to give a quick shout out to our good friends at Prizepicks, where you can cash in on the basketball playoffs right now. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prizepicks lineup. Points, rebounds, assists, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. With Prizepicks, you can also mix and match player projections from other sports, whether we're talking baseball, hockey, esports, and much, much more. And with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prizepicks, which is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. If you're trying to get in, this is what you got to do. You simply download the app today, use code CLNS, and you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. And we are going to keep running our game with a topic that I was saving near the end because it has a special place in Vincent Goodwill's heart. The New York Knicks, your team. Vince had a piece not too long ago just kind of really laid out some of the details surrounding the firing of Tom Thibodeau. And good stuff, by the way, because and just to kind of give people a real quick recap, there was a segment of the media that were being fed that Dolan had nothing to do with this. It had nothing to do with this. Vincent Goodwill's reporting says, "Not so fast, my friend." Take our listeners through a little bit of just some of the stuff that you uncovered in your reporting on this really one of the biggest stories in the NBA right now.
Sherrod, it's like when a big story happens and you're making calls and you're trying to figure out if the narrative matches, the initial reporting. And I didn't honestly think that it was going to be this big thing. You're just sort of doing due diligence. And, my sources were telling me, no, this was a James Dolan operation. And I feel like everything that's happened since has confirmed it, as opposed to it being Leon Rose saying, you know what, Tibbs, I've had enough of you, considering they were best friends.
Yeah, that's his boy.
I'm your agent. You know what I mean? Like the inside sure, I'd be like, you firing me. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing doesn't, I suppose you could, you know what I mean? But that thing, it would take a lot for something like that to happen, if not in the face of massive failure, which the New York Knicks did not do. They had their best season in over 25 years. So in gathering information, you're looking around, you're saying, okay, how involved was Dolan? And then you're asking, oh, was he in these exit meetings that everybody said Leon Rose had with the players, and the players blamed Tibbs and everything else? And I heard no, it was James Dolan asking the questions to the players, and maybe you can say this. Maybe the players knew exactly what Jim Dolan wanted to hear, right? Is leading the witness. You know, if the owner has never been in a exit meeting before, and then he shows up in the exit meeting,
You kind
chances
of know
is
what's going on. Yeah.
you know what it is, and you're probably not going to try to defy him or
Right.
go against whatever he's thinking, because you don't want to be on that Summer Jam screen yourself. You don't want to be the next guy he's saying you're fired to,
Right.
or traded to Siberia. So if he's saying I want to fire Tibbs, you're gonna help him. Did you guys play too many minutes? Yeah, we played too many minutes. Did he have a failure to
I
adjust?
show him
Yeah,
fired.
yeah, he had a failure to adjust. So yeah, those were some of the things coming out from some of the players, and maybe the players felt like that themselves. Now there were a few players who I was told who were Tibbs loyalists, who basically stuck by him and said, "No, this is the guy. This is our guy. This is my guy." But there were other players who spoke out strongly against him, and maybe these were their true feelings. And shortly after the meeting, once again, James Dolan ran it. Leon Rose was in the room, but he wasn't asking a whole lot of questions. Shortly after that meeting, they called Tom Thibodeau in and they fired him.
Wow.
Because they wanted to fire him.
Wow.
It wasn't like, it's not like they wanted to hire another coach. It wasn't like, oh, we want to hire Jason Kidd, or we want to, go and get this coach or that coach. You fired Tom Thibodeau because you wanted to.
Right. And that last point you brought up, Vince, that's the part about all this that I will absolutely admit I completely missed the boat on, because when they fired him, my first thought was like, oh, they got someone in mind that they're going to there's going to be an announcement in the next 24 to 48 hours who the new New York Knicks coach is going to be. Because I think back to when I was in Detroit, and I remember vividly Rick Carlisle. We sitting up at the old practice facility in Auburn Hills on a Saturday talking about him and a possible extension. And then Sunday, Larry Brown decides he's not going to coach anymore. And then Monday, he says he wants to coach again. And then next thing you know, within less than a week, Rick Carlisle is out, Larry Brown is in, because they figured out who they wanted and they pursued it and made it happen. And the Knicks, it seems as if, to your point, they just wanted to me, they are an example of what happens when you have a concept and you perpetrate it as if your concept of a concept is a plan, when in fact it's just a concept. It's not fully baked. It's not even, you didn't even get it in the damn oven. You just put it on a tray and like, we're gonna put this in the oven at some point and then it's gonna cook. But then Jason Kidd, nope. Minnesota coach, nope. Ime, nope. I mean, they're striking out Quinn Snyder. I think I saw a report, Quinn Snyder.
Yep.
So at some point, they got to get down to you and me, V. At some point, they got to hit us up, because I don't know if anyone outside of the organization is going to take it. Now, I have an idea who they're going to wind up as the head coach, and they're not going to have to go too far to get it. And it's going to be controversial, but as if that would ever stop them from doing.
You thinking Rick Brunson?
I know. Hot take.
Wow.
Some would argue that he's been a head coach.
Yeah.
He's already done the job.
Yeah, some people will say that.
I think Rick, again, I think Rick is going to be a good head coach. I just think this situation is so crappy for him, because what the Knicks have essentially done is they've said, like, look, anything less than the trip to the NBA Finals is not going to be good enough. And to me, the idea that is the measuring stick of your success is insane, considering you have literally done that once in the last 25 years, and you did it last month. How in the world could you possibly have your bar set that high and get rid of the guy who got you there? And this is the kicker. This is why I feel no sympathy for Tom Thibodeau, because there's 30 million. They're giving him 30 million reasons why he should be all right with this firing. Did he deserve it? I don't think so. But if the consolation prize is I don't get to coach the New York Knicks, but I'm gonna get a 30 million check and some change, when for me, all you want to, I'm gonna be all right.
Well, I mean, when you consider he's one of these coaching lifers, like more than the money, he feels like he has the purpose, and he's responsible for bringing the New York Knicks back. to a level of prominence and getting them at least to the doorstep. Now, some people may say that's as far as that he was going to be able to take him. That's as far as he went in Chicago. You look at the way that he coaches and his style, and you're saying maybe that's not conducive to winning a championship. That may very well be the truth. When you are the New York Knicks, and there's a homegirl of mine, she said this about dating men.
Oh,
And
Lord.
she said, the bar is the floor. You ain't got to try that hard. So with that, the Knicks, that's what the bar used to be. The bar used to be the floor. The bar used to be, hey, man, let's just play meaningful basketball. Maybe you get into the first round. You get people happy and excited or whatever it is. But the expectations aren't winning the championship. Those people are starving just for a little bit of success. Now the expectation is not the floor. The bar is not the floor. The bar is, I'm in Indy. The bar is St. Elmo's. The bar is, you better get me some nice cut of filet with a side of that overrated ass shrimp cocktail. Like that is the line for whoever walks in now. This is not the same job that Tom Thibodeau walked into, 5 years ago. This is a job for whatever reason, Sherrod, they've gotten a little over their skis. I look at this team and I'm like, Jaylen Brunson can't defend. Karl Towns can't defend. Mikal Bridges doesn't like contact. And you only have maybe 6 good players, and you're telling me that team is supposed to be in the NBA Finals? That team is supposed to win the championship when you've got the money committed to some of those guys, when you gave up 5 draft picks for Mikal Bridges, and you have nothing left to give in a move? I don't see how that's an attractive job with relative to the expectations, other than saying it's the New York Knicks. They're probably going to pay you a lot of money, but their plan was not, hey, let's just go fire Tibbs and get in, maybe get Rick Brunson or Johnny Bryan, who's an assistant, been there, and they seem really high on, or even Mike Brown, who I think could wind up with the job. Whoever winds up with the job is not going to be because they wanted to hire them. Whoever gets the job, Sherrod, is going to be a byproduct of them firing Tom Thibodeau, because that was option A. We want to fire Tom Thibodeau. We don't have to worry about, and then what? Until then. No, we're firing Tom Thibodeau because I, James Dolan, want to fire Tom Thibodeau.
And I'm struggling to understand the reasoning and rationale behind. And to the point you made, I do get that maybe this is about as far as you're going to go with Tibbs. But damn, you went kind of far with Tibbs. I mean, you literally went about as far as you could possibly go with a roster that is very, I guess, for lack of a better description, it's got some issues. I was, when the Knicks, made all the offseason moves, and we were talking about teams that challenged the Celtics in the East, I did not think the Knicks were a serious challenger for a lot of the reasons you laid out there. The fact that when 40% of your starting 5 is defensive deficient, that's a problem. When, your best interior defender, it's a coin toss as far as whether he'll be available to play or not. I'm talking about Mitchell Robinson. That's a problem. When you got a guy named Cat, who sometimes plays like a tiger, sometimes plays like a nice, soft, cuddly kitty cat. That's a problem.
Y'all be going in on Cat. Y'all be going in on Cat.
Look, man, he owned it. He's a hell of a player, but he gets soft on you. If we being honest. He goes Casper the Friendly Ghost on me one too many times. And for Tom Thibodeau to take all of those shortcomings and bring them together and get you to the Eastern Conference Finals where you beat Boston. And then, grant, Boston had their own issues, but you still beat them, and you should absolutely get the credit cake for beating them. And your reward is, we need better. What? I'll give you something look, Lenny Wilkins could not give you this. Larry Brown did not give you this. You start going down the coaches that the Knicks have run through and the Hall of Fame credentials they had outside of New York, and it's like, what Thibodeau did is even more impressive when you start looking at just the pantheon of coaches that he has basically outperformed while he's been the head coach of the New York Knicks. And you say, that ain't enough, man. We need more. Come on, now.
Well, here's what I will say, and I'm not saying this is James Dolan having the benefit of foresight, right? I believe that league-wide, you could make the case, if you wanted to, you could make the case to fire 15 to 20 head coaches every year. Right?
Yeah.
Not saying you're firing Mark Dagnall or Rick Carlisle, but if you wanted to make the case, if you wanted to look at, let's say, Steve Kerr and say, you know what, Steve, you've had a great run here, and we want to go in a different direction because we're not sure if you can coach and develop young players like Jonathan Kuminga and how important they are to the future of the franchise. I'm not saying that this is what they would do. I'm saying we've seen these instances before where someone will give you a reason to fire. You know what I'm saying? Just like a woman to give you a reason to dump her. It's just that you're choosing not to because you want them to stay. Like it's not even it's a problem. It's just everybody has flaws, and there are flaws that can cost you your job. It's a matter of whether or not you feel like you can move forward. Where I will look at the New York Knicks and give them a little bit of grace is if you believe that you are going star hunting again this summer, if you are in the future of the Giannis sweepstakes or future of the Kevin Durant sweepstakes, and you don't believe that they will choose your team because you feel like they're going to get played too many minutes, the word around the league could be bad about what he does to the players, blah, blah, blah. All right, cool. That could be a forward-thinking move because players will say no depending on who the head coach is. Or you can say, you know what, Tom Thibodeau, we brought you in on a team that had Julius Randle and a bunch of tryhards, and you turned it around. And now this team is not the team that we hired you to coach, and we don't feel like you can carry them to the next level. And we don't want you to be a lame duck head coach going into next season where the first 3-game losing streak, we're going to fire you. I can respect that, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think the New York Knicks had that level of foresight. I just think they fired Tibbs because they wanted to fire Tibbs regardless of what he was going to do. When you fire somebody after making the Eastern Conference Finals, you didn't fire him because they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. You fired him because there was nothing that he could do to save his job.
Right. And I honestly, I thought that this was the reality if the Celtics knocked him out in the second round. I was like 99.9% sure that it was a wrap. He was not coming back. But once they got past them and they got to the conference finals, it's like, okay, it's hard to justify cutting him loose, but apparently the New York Knicks do what New York Knicks tend to do, which is the unthinkable. And cut a really, really good coach loose. But you know what? We're going to move to a topic that the Knicks aren't going to be talking about anytime soon, NBA Finals, because that's not what they do, clearly. Game 4 coming up. OKC looking to get one on the road and even this thing up and reassert themselves with home court advantage and get a little bit mojo heading back to OKC. How do you see Game 4 playing out?
I mean, Game 4 is the most important game of Oklahoma City's franchise in about 10, 11, 12 years, right? Probably since at least the 2016 Western Conference Finals where they blew a 3-1 lead to the Golden State Warriors. And then, Kevin Durant leaves and everything else sort of happens after that. You're going to find out what this team is made of. This is a gut check game, right?
Yeah.
We all believed, I've said it, written it, that maybe they graduated after beating Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, and they surpassed something. They collected something along the way. But now they're in a place where you're on the road in a hostile environment that's going to be revved up tomorrow night, revved up on Friday. They can smell 3-1 lead. The Indiana Pacers franchise has never been this close to winning an NBA championship since coming over from the ABA. They won 2 games against the Lakers in 2000, but it wasn't in this type of scenario. They were never up 2-1. They weren't even tied 2-2. They've never been this close. So there's going to be an air of desperation from the fans and the environment and everything that's there. And you're going to find out what Oklahoma City is made of. If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP that we have said that he is, if he is validating everything that we have said about him this season, then he's going to have a game. Like me and you were both in the building when Stephen Curry saw his Golden State Warriors down 2-1 on the road against the Boston Celtics team and said, not on my watch, and gave us a performance for the ages in a hostile environment. The Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's not 35 or 34, whatever age Steph was at the time, the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander have that type of game in him, especially if the Pacers have discovered we're going to play fast, we're going to be a lot more physical and intentional, and nothing's wrong with us physically. The Indiana Pacers have a cheat code here, and the only person who can break that cheat code is probably the MVP.
Facts. Facts. I'm looking forward to it because, again, we got a series. And no matter what the Nielsen numbers tell you, this is a very entertaining, fun to
Yes.
watch series. The way these teams are going at it. But before we get out of here, though, I just for those of you listening to the show, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to CLNS Media and Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find this show and many other shows, both Big Three NBA podcasts as well as other Celtics content. And make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. Any parting words for the people, my good friend Vincent Goodwill Jr.?
No, just what you said. Subscribe, rate, all that good stuff. I can't believe you made it all the way through. All the way through.
I know. I know.
It's all good. It's all good. You couldn't help yourself.
I couldn't, brother. I couldn't. That's it for this episode of the Big Three NBA podcast. For Vincent Goodwill, I'm Sherrod Blakely. And again, this is the Big Three NBA podcast. We out.